Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at the screen in disbelief. After 3 weeks of traveling through empty space, her research ship had picked up something impossible, a distress signal from a planet that wasn't supposed to have any life on it. "Are you seeing this?" she called to Captain James Park, who was reviewing navigation charts nearby. The signal was weak but steady, repeating the same mathematical pattern over and over again. "That's definitely artificial," Park said, moving closer, to look at the data. "But according to our star charts, Kepler 442b was abandoned 50 years ago. Nothing should be alive down there." Elena felt her heart racing. As the lead scientist on this mission, she had spent years studying reports of lost civilizations. But finding one that might still be alive, that was the discovery of a lifetime. "We have to go down and look," she said. "Whatever's down there is asking for help." The planet looked sick from orbit. Brown clouds covered most of the surface, and the blue-green areas that should have been oceans looked more like muddy puddles. But their scanners showed something amazing. There were still cities down there, and something was definitely alive inside them. When their shuttle touched down outside the largest city, Elena couldn't believe what she saw. Beautiful crystal. Towers stretched toward the sky, but they were cracked and broken. Strange plants with glowing leaves grew wild through empty streets. And walking slowly between the ruined buildings were the most incredible beings Elena had ever seen. They looked almost like living glass sculptures. Their skin was clear blue, like looking through colored water, and patterns of light moved under. Their surface like tiny lightning storms. They were tall and thin, with long arms that ended in delicate fingers. When they moved, they seemed to flow rather than walk. But something was terribly wrong. Many of them walked with difficulty, their beautiful light patterns flickering weakly. Some had dark spots on their skin that looked like cracks in broken glass. The worst part was seeing their children, small versions of these beautiful beings, but with twisted limbs and dim, barely glowing patterns. "My God," whispered Dr. Lisa Chen, the team's medical expert. "They're sick. All of them." Elena approached one of the beings carefully, holding up her hands to show she meant no harm. The creature, she decided to think of it as he, based on the deeper tones of his voice, stood perfectly still, watching her with large, sad eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Using simple drawings in the dirt and basic mathematical symbols, Elena and her team slowly began to communicate. What they learned broke their hearts. These beings called themselves Zephyrians. They had once been part of something called the Dominion Alliance, a group of powerful alien civilizations that controlled this part of the galaxy. The Zephyrians had been valued members, contributing art, technology, and scientific knowledge that helped many worlds. But 50 years ago, their children started being born wrong. The glowing patterns that showed health and happiness grew dim. Babies were born with twisted bodies that couldn't support their crystalline structure. The adults began getting sick, too, their beautiful flowing movements becoming stiff and painful. The Zephyrians begged their allies in the Dominion for help. They shared all their medical knowledge, offered their remaining resources, and pleaded for assistance in finding a cure. But instead of help, they received a cold message that changed everything. "Your species shows signs of genetic failure," the message had said. "The Dominion cannot waste resources on a dying race. You are hereby removed from our protection and alliance. Do not contact us again." Just like that, 50 years of friendship and partnership ended. The advanced medical equipment stopped working because no one would send replacement parts. The ships that brought food and supplies stopped coming. Other civilizations that had once traded with them turned away, following the Dominion's lead. Elena watched an elderly Zephyrian. The patterns under his skin were so dim they were barely visible, carefully tending to a small garden of glowing plants. His movements were slow and painful, but he never stopped working. When he noticed her watching, he made a sound that her translation device interpreted as something like, "Hope Song for Tomorrow." "Why?" Elena asked through their primitive communication system. "Why do you keep trying?" The old Zephyrian's response was simple, but powerful. He pointed to a group of young Zephyrians playing a gentle game with floating spheres of light. Even though they moved awkwardly and their lights were dim, they were laughing, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Life spark continues," the translation device said. "While spark exists, hope exists." Dr. Chen had been studying tissue, samples, and running medical scans all week. When she finally called everyone together, her face was grim but determined. "I've got good news and terrible news," she said. "The good news is this isn't a genetic disease at all. It's some kind of engineered virus that's attacking their cellular structure. The terrible news is that it's incredibly sophisticated. Someone designed this specifically to target Zephyrian biology." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean someone did this to them on purpose?" "That's exactly what I mean," Chen replied. "And whoever made it wanted to make sure it would kill them slowly, over generations." Captain Park was quiet for a long moment. "So the Dominion didn't abandon them because they were naturally failing. They abandoned them because someone was murdering them slowly." Elena thought about the old Zephyrian in the garden, still tending his plants despite everything that had been done to his people. She thought about the children playing in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. She thought about 50 years of suffering that could have been prevented if anyone had cared enough to help. "We have to do something," she said finally. "We can't just leave them here to die." "The Dominion made it clear that anyone who helps them would be considered an enemy," Park warned. "If we get involved, we could be putting all of humanity at risk." Elena looked out the window at a young Zephyrian mother holding her sick child, humming a lullaby that glowed softly in the air around them. The child's light patterns were so weak they could barely be seen, but the mother never stopped singing. "Then we'll have to take that risk," Elena said, "because if we walk away from this, how are we any different from the civilizations that abandoned them?" That night, Elena sent a long message back to Earth. She described everything they had found: the sick children, the abandoned city, the engineered plague that had been slowly destroying an entire species while the galaxy looked the other way. She ended with a simple request. "We cannot call ourselves human if we turn away from those who suffer simply because helping them might be difficult. These people have been forgotten by everyone else, but they don't have to be forgotten by us. Send help. Send hope. Send the message that Earth stands with those who have no one else to stand with them." As she sent the message into space, Elena looked up at the stars and wondered what kind of galaxy they lived in. One where an entire civilization could be abandoned to die simply because helping them was inconvenient. But she also knew what kind of species humanity was. They were the kind who ran toward danger to help others. They were the kind who said no when everyone else said, "That's just how things are." They were the kind who believed that every life had value, no matter what anyone else said. The Zephyrians had been waiting 50 years for someone to care. Elena was determined to make sure their wait was finally over. 3 weeks had passed since Princess Zara's arrival, and the negotiations were moving slower than anyone hoped. Every day brought new meetings with different government officials, each one more suspicious than the last. Some wanted to help, but others kept asking the same questions over and over. Why should Earth trust the Andorians? What if this was just the beginning of an invasion? Zara found these meetings exhausting, but there was one part of her day she actually looked forward to. Dr. Chen had suggested cultural exchange sessions to help build trust between their species. Officially, these meetings were about sharing scientific knowledge and learning about each other's civilizations. Unofficially, they had become the highlight of Zara's time on Earth. "Tell me about your childhood," Dr. Chen said during one of their afternoon sessions. They were sitting in his research lab, surrounded by plants from all over the world. The smell of earth and growing things reminded Zara of something she couldn't quite place. Andorian children grow up very differently from humans, she began, but then stopped. An image had flashed through her mind, quick as lightning. Rain falling on her face, the sound of wind in tall trees. Fear. Actually, I don't remember much from when I was very young. There was some kind of accident when I was 5. My memories from before that time are very fuzzy. Dr. Chen looked up from the notes he was taking, his pen frozen in midair. That's strange. I have the same problem. I was adopted when I was 8, and I can't remember anything from before that. My parents always said I must have been through something difficult because I used to have nightmares about being lost in a forest. Zara's heart started beating faster. Forests, rain, fear. These were the exact images that had been haunting her. Dreams since she arrived on Earth. What else do you remember from your dreams? Not much that makes sense, Dr. Chen said, setting down his pen and leaning back in his chair. Purple skies, strange music, and sometimes I dream about a little girl with eyes that change color when she was scared. But that's impossible, right? No humans have eyes that change color. The room suddenly felt very small. Zara's eyes were changing color right now, shifting from their normal blue to deep purple the way they always did when she was nervous or confused. She saw Dr. Chen notice, saw his face go pale. Your eyes, he whispered. They just changed color. All Andorians have eyes that reflect their emotions, Zara said quickly, trying to sound normal even though her heart was racing. It's completely natural for our species. But Dr. Chen wasn't listening to her explanation. He was staring at her with the strangest expression, like he was seeing a ghost. He stood up suddenly and walked to his desk, opening one of the drawers. From inside, he pulled out a small wooden carving of a bird. I've had this since I was a child, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I don't know why, but I've always kept it with me. I used to tell people I made it, but I don't remember making it. I don't even remember learning how to carve wood. Zara's breath caught in her throat. The little wooden bird was crude, obviously made by a child, but there was something so familiar about it. She reached out without thinking and took it from his hands. The moment her fingers touched the wood, more memories crashed through her mind. A boy with kind eyes teaching her words in his language, sharing food that tasted strange but good, feeling safe for the first time in days, and the same gentle hands that had just given her the carving, working carefully to make something that would make her smile. Where did you say you were adopted from? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The Pacific Northwest, a place called Olympic National Forest. I was found there by hikers, alone and scared. The authorities never figured out where I came from or what happened to my family. Dr. Chen sat back down, but he was watching her carefully now. Why do you ask? Zara felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. She wanted to tell him everything, but she was afraid. What if she was wrong? What if these memories were just her imagination playing tricks on her, but the wooden bird in her hands felt so real, so familiar? I need to check something, she said finally. Can you give me a few days? That evening, Zara returned to her ship and accessed the Andorian database. Her hands were shaking as she searched through classified files from 23 years ago. Most of the records from her childhood were sealed, locked away to protect the royal family's reputation. But her clearance as a princess gave her access to everything. What she found made her legs go weak. There it was, buried in military reports and diplomatic files, the official record of her kidnapping. Political rebels had taken 5-year-old Princess Zara from the royal palace, demanding changes to the government. Their ship had been damaged during the escape, and they had crashed on a primitive planet called Earth. The rescue report was brief, but clear. Princess Zara had been found 3 days after the crash, suffering from exposure and shock. She was discovered by local authorities after being reported by an 8-year-old human boy who claimed he had been taking care of her. The boy had told the rescuers that the strange girl had been scared and couldn't speak their language properly, so he had shared his food with her and tried to keep her safe. Medical records showed that both children had been treated for mild hypothermia and dehydration, then separated. The human boy was placed with local social services since he appeared to be lost or abandoned. Princess Zara was returned to her family, but the trauma had caused temporary memory loss that the royal doctors decided not to treat, hoping she would forget the embarrassing incident entirely. Zara sat staring at the files for hours, pieces of her past finally falling into place. The boy who had saved her, who had carved her a little wooden bird and taught her to say safe in his language, was now Dr. Chen. The human she had been working with for weeks, the one who felt so familiar, was her childhood protector. But there was more. Hidden in the medical files was something that made Zara's heart stop. When Princess Zara was found, she was wearing a small crystal fragment on a cord around her neck. The doctors had assumed it was jewelry from her home world, but the analysis showed it was actually a rare earth mineral, exactly the kind her people now desperately needed to save their dying planet. Dr. Chen hadn't just saved her life 23 years ago. He had given her the key to saving her entire world, and he didn't even know it. As Zara sat alone in her quarters that night, holding the wooden bird and thinking about the kind 8-year-old boy who had grown up to become the gentle scientist helping her now, she realized that some connections run deeper than memory. Some bonds are strong enough to bring two people back together across time and space, even when they've forgotten each other's names. Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether to tell Dr. Chen the truth. But tonight, she would let herself remember. Being 5 years old, scared and alone, and finding safety in the kindness of a stranger who turned out to be exactly the friend she needed. The next morning came too soon for Princess Zara. She had barely slept, her mind racing with everything she had discovered. The wooden bird sat on her nightstand, a small piece of carved wood that had somehow bridged 23 years and countless light years to bring her back to the boy who had saved her life. Captain Revik found her staring out the window of her quarters, still in yesterday's clothes. "Your Highness, you missed the morning briefing," he said gently. "The Earth delegates are asking questions." "Revik," Zara said without turning around, "I need you to help me with something. Something that could change everything about this mission." It's told him about Dr. Chen, about the memories, about the wooden bird. She showed him the classified files she had found, watching his face change as he read through the reports of her kidnapping and rescue. "This is incredible," Revik said finally. "But Your Highness, are you absolutely certain? The political implications of this are enormous. If word gets out that you were once stranded on Earth, that you have a personal connection to a human, No," Zara said, "but I need to be sure. I need to know if Dr. Chen remembers too, or if I'm the only one carrying these memories." Meanwhile, across the city, Dr. Chen was having problems of his own. He couldn't stop thinking about Princess Zara's color-changing eyes, about the way she had reacted to his wooden bird carving. All night he had been sketching in his notebook, drawing symbols that looked almost like writing but in no language he recognized. His research partner, Dr. Kim, found him at his desk that morning, surrounded by papers covered in strange symbols. "What is all this?" she asked, picking up one of the sheets. "It looks almost like... Wait, these symbols look similar to the Andorian script we've been studying." Dr. Chen looked up with tired eyes. "That's impossible. I've never studied Andorian writing before this month, but I keep drawing these symbols, and I don't know why." Dr. Kim pulled out her tablet and brought up the Andorian language database. Side by side, the symbols Dr. Chen had been drawing were almost identical to basic Andorian letters. Not perfect, but close enough that it couldn't be a coincidence. "This is really weird," Dr. Kim said. It's like you knew their language before. You learned it. Have you ever had any contact with aliens before? Dr. Chen shook his head, but even as he did, more memories were surfacing. A musical voice speaking in sounds that weren't quite words. Small hands that felt different from human hands. Eyes that changed color with emotions. I need to look into something, he said suddenly. Can you cover my morning meetings? While Dr. Kim handled his appointments, Dr. Chen went to the city records office. He had never been curious about his adoption before, accepting his parents' explanation that his original family had been lost. But now, with these strange memories surfacing, he needed to know more. The adoption records were thin. He had been found in Olympic National Forest by a hiking couple, confused and speaking what social workers had noted as possibly a foreign language or childish gibberish. What caught his attention was the date. The same week he was found, there had been reports of an unidentified aircraft crashing in the same forest. Dr. Chen felt his heart stop. He requested the crash investigation files, and what he found made everything click into place. The military had investigated reports of a strange craft going down in the forest. They had found debris that didn't match any known aircraft, made from materials that couldn't be identified. But the most interesting detail was in the witness statements. A forest ranger had reported finding 2 children at the crash site. One was a local boy who appeared to have been helping the other child, described as a small girl with unusual features who seemed to be in shock and spoke no English. Both children were taken to the hospital, but only the boy went into the adoption system. The girl had been claimed by federal agents and removed from local custody within 24 hours. The pieces were falling together like a puzzle Dr. Chen had been trying to solve his entire life. The strange dreams, the wooden bird. He couldn't remember making the way Princess Zara felt so familiar. She was the little girl from the forest. The scared child he had tried to protect when they were both just kids. That afternoon, Zara requested a private meeting with Dr. Chen. She found him in his lab, staring at the wooden bird he had placed on his desk. I've been doing some research, too, he said as soon as she walked in. About my childhood, about the forest where I was found. I think we need to talk. Zara's hands were shaking as she sat down across from him. Dr. Chen, what I'm about to tell you might sound impossible, but I think you and I met before, a long time ago. 23 years ago. He said quietly, in Olympic National Forest, after a crash. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. You remember, Zara whispered. Not everything, but enough. Dr. Chen picked up the wooden bird. I made this for you, didn't I? You were scared and cold, and I was trying to make you feel better. Zara nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. You shared your food with me. You taught me to say safe in English. You stayed with me when I thought I was going to die alone. Your eyes, Dr. Chen said softly. They changed color when you were frightened. Purple when you were scared. Blue when you started to feel better. I thought I had dreamed that. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them processing the magnitude of what they were remembering. 2 children from different worlds, thrown together by accident, who had taken care of each other in their darkest moment. There's something else, Zara said. She reached under her shirt and pulled out the crystal pendant she always wore. When they found me, I was wearing this. The doctor said it was earth minerals, not Andorian. I think you gave this to me, too. Dr. Chen stared at the crystal, and suddenly he could see himself as a child, taking it off his own neck and putting it around hers. I found it near the crash site, he said, the memory becoming clearer. It was pretty, and you seemed to like shiny things. I wanted you to have something to remember that you were safe. Do you know what this is? Zara asked, holding up the crystal so it caught the light. It's exactly the mineral my people need to save our planet. The thing we came to Earth to find. You gave it to me 23 years ago, and now it's brought me back to you." Dr. Chen felt like the world was spinning around him. The scared little girl he had tried to protect had grown up to be an alien princess. The crystal he had given her as a child was now the key to saving her entire civilization. And somehow, impossibly, they had found each other again across space and time. "What does this mean?" he asked. "For the negotiations, for our peoples, for us." Zara looked at him with eyes that were shifting through every color of her emotions. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I know that meeting you as a child changed who I became. You showed me that kindness exists between different species. You're the reason I believed peace was possible." As they sat together in the quiet lab, surrounded by plants from Earth and holding pieces of their shared past, both Zara and Dr. Chen realized that some connections are stronger than politics, stronger than the distance between worlds, and stronger, even than forgotten memories. They had found each other again, and this time they weren't going to let go. The days following their revelation were the hardest of both their lives. Princess Zara and Dr. Chen had found each other again, but the weight of their discovery felt overwhelming. They met secretly in his lab each evening after the official negotiations ended, both struggling with what their connection meant for their peoples and for themselves. "I keep thinking about that scared little girl in the forest," Dr. Chen said one evening as they sat surrounded by his research notes. "She was so brave, even when she was terrified. I can see that same strength in you now." Zara smiled sadly, her eyes shifting to a soft golden color. "And I keep thinking about the boy who gave up his own food to make sure I wasn't hungry. You haven't changed as much as you think." But their private moments were becoming more difficult to find. The negotiations were falling apart. Earth's governments were growing more suspicious every day, and some military leaders were openly calling the Andorians a threat. Zara's own. People were losing patience, too. Messages from her homeworld arrived daily, each one more desperate than the last. The atmosphere was failing faster than predicted, and some council members were suggesting they take what they needed by force. During one particularly tense meeting with world leaders, General Morrison slammed his hand on the table. "How do we know this isn't all a trick? You show up here with your sad stories about dying planets, but how do we know you won't just take over once we let our guard down?" Zara kept her voice calm, even though her eyes were flashing with frustrated purple streaks. "General Morrison, if we wanted to invade Earth, we wouldn't need to ask permission. Our technology is thousands of years ahead of yours. We're here because we believe in cooperation, not conquest." "That's exactly what an invader would say," Morrison shot back. Dr. Chen had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now he stood up. "General, Princess Zara's people have shared their technology freely with our scientists. They've answered every question we've asked, submitted to every security check we've requested. At what point do we start showing the same good faith they've shown us?" "When we're sure they won't destroy us the moment we trust them," Morrison replied coldly. After the meeting ended badly, Zara felt more discouraged than ever. She found Dr. Chen waiting for her outside the conference room. "Walk with me," he said quietly. They left the government building and walked through the city streets as evening fell around them. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Dr. Chen broke the silence. "Do you remember what you said to me that last day in the forest?" he asked. "Before the rescue teams found us?" Zara thought for a moment, then smiled as the memory surfaced. "I tried to say thank you in English, but I got the words wrong. I said you good human instead. And I told you that you were a good person too, even though I didn't know where you came from," Dr. Chen said. "I meant it then, and I mean it now. Some things don't change." They had stopped walking and were standing under a streetlight. Zara looked at this man who had been her protector as a child and was now her strongest ally as an adult. Her eyes were cycling through colors as her emotions swirled between hope and despair. "What if we can't make them understand?" she asked. "What if fear wins?" Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out the wooden bird, the same carving he had made for her 23 years ago. "When I carved this for you, I was just a scared kid trying to help another scared kid," he said. "I didn't think about politics or species or what was supposed to be impossible. I just saw someone who needed help and I helped." He held the wooden bird out to her. "Maybe that's what we need to show them. Not treaties or trade agreements, but the simple truth that kindness works, that trust works, that two people from completely different worlds can take care of each other." Zara took the carving, feeling its familiar weight in her hands. "You're talking about revealing our connection, aren't you? Telling them about what happened when we were children." "I think we have to," Dr. Chen said. "The official negotiations are failing because everyone is focused on what might go wrong. But we're living proof of what can go right when people choose to help each other instead of hurt each other." "It's risky," Zara said. "If the wrong people find out that I was stranded on Earth before, that I have personal ties to humans, they might use it against both our peoples." "I know. But Zara, look at us. We found each other again across impossible odds. Your childhood experience with one human shaped your entire approach to diplomacy. My childhood experience with one alien led me to dedicate my life to xenobiology. We're not just two people who happen to meet twice. We're proof that connections between species can create something beautiful." Zara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. If they revealed their story, it could change everything. It could give people hope and show them that cooperation between humans and Andorians was not only possible, but natural. Or it could backfire completely, making both species more suspicious of hidden agendas and secret connections. "There's something else," she said finally. "Something I haven't told anyone, not even you." She pulled out her crystal pendant, the one Dr. Chen had given her as a child. "I had this analyzed by our scientists. It's not just any Earth mineral. It's a perfect match for what we need. But more than that, it's somehow evolved, changed, like it's been influenced by Andorian energy over the years." Dr. Chen stared at the crystal. "What does that mean?" "It means that the bond between us, between our peoples, has been growing stronger even when we didn't know it existed. This crystal has been absorbing both human and Andorian energy for 23 years. It's become something new, something that belongs to both worlds." She looked up at him, her eyes now a steady, determined blue. "If we're going to tell our story, we need to tell all of it. The crash, the rescue, the crystal, everything. We need to show them that we're not just asking for help. We're offering a partnership that started the day a human child decided to take care of an alien child." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "When do we tell them?" "Tomorrow," Zara said, "at the full assembly in front of everyone." As they walked back toward the government quarter, both of them were quiet, thinking about what they were about to do. They were going to stand in front of the most powerful people on Earth and the representatives of a dying alien world and tell them a story about two scared children who chose kindness over fear. It was either going to save both their worlds or destroy any chance of peace between them. But as Zara held the wooden bird in one hand and the transformed crystal in the other, she felt something she hadn't felt since she was 5 years old, and Dr. Chen had promised her she was safe. She felt hope. Tomorrow they would find out if the rest of the universe was ready to believe in the same hope that had brought them back together across time and space. The assembly hall had never felt so crowded or so quiet at the same time. Representatives from 50 Earth nations filled one side of the room, while Andorian delegates occupied the other. In the center, Princess Zara stood at the podium with Dr. Chen beside her, both of them holding the objects that had connected their lives for over 2 decades. Zara's heart was beating so fast she was sure everyone could hear it. Captain Revik had tried to talk her out of this one last time that morning, warning her about the political dangers of revealing her personal connection to Earth. But she knew this was their only chance to break through the walls of fear that were destroying any hope of peace. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "For the past month, we've talked about trade agreements and security concerns. We've debated the risks of cooperation between our species. But today I want to tell you a different story. A true story about what happens when two very different people choose to help each other instead of fear each other." She held up the wooden bird, so small it seemed lost in the vast room, but somehow everyone's attention focused on it immediately. 23 years ago, when I was 5 years old, I was kidnapped from my home world by political rebels. Their ship crashed here on Earth in your Olympic National Forest. I was alone, scared, and certain I was going to die on a strange planet far from home. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several Earth delegates looked shocked, while some of the Andorian representatives appeared uncomfortable with this unexpected revelation. "But I didn't die," Zara continued, "because an 8-year-old human boy found me. He didn't know what I was or where I came from. He only saw that I was afraid and hungry. So he shared his food with me. He stayed with me for 3 days, keeping me warm and safe until rescue teams found us both." Dr. Chen stepped forward, his hands shaking slightly as he spoke into his microphone. "I was that boy. I had no idea who Princess Zara was. I just knew she needed help, and helping her seemed like the most natural thing in the world. When she was cold, I gave her my jacket. When she was hungry, I shared my food. When she was scared, I carved her this little wooden bird and taught her to say safe in English." The room was completely silent now. Even General Morrison, who had been Princess Zara's harshest critic, was leaning forward with interest. Zara's eyes were shifting through gentle colors as she continued the story. "That experience shaped everything I became, because of Dr. Chen's kindness. I grew up believing that different species could take care of each other. When my people's world started dying, I volunteered for this diplomatic mission because I remembered what I learned from one human child. That kindness is stronger than fear. But there's more to our story," Dr. Chen said. He nodded to Zara, who pulled out her crystal pendant. "When we were found in the forest, I was wearing this," she said, holding up the crystal so it caught the light. Dr. Chen had given it to me, a piece of earth mineral that he thought was pretty. Neither of us knew at the time that this exact type of crystal is what my people need to save our dying atmosphere. Dr. Kim, who was sitting with the scientific delegation, stood up suddenly. "Princess Zara, our analysis of that crystal showed something unusual. It's been changed somehow, evolved beyond normal Earth minerals." "That's right," Zara said. "Over 23 years, this crystal has been absorbing energy from both worlds. It's become something new, something that belongs to both Earth and Andoria. It's living proof that our species can not only coexist, but create something better, together than either could create alone." She looked out at the assembled delegates, seeing fear and suspicion on some faces, wonder and hope on others. "We're not asking you to trust us because of treaties or promises," she said. "We're asking you to trust us because trust already worked. 23 years ago, two children from different worlds took care of each other without thinking about politics or differences or what was supposed to be impossible. And that act of kindness led directly to the solution both our peoples need today." General Morrison stood up. "Your Highness, this is a touching story, but how do we know it's true? How do we know this isn't just a convenient tale designed to manipulate our emotions?" Captain Revik stepped forward with a tablet. "General Morrison, we have the official rescue reports from both governments, medical records, witness statements, even satellite footage of the crash site. Every detail of their story can be verified. More than that," Dr. Chen added, "our story isn't really about the past. It's about what we choose to do right now. Princess Zara's people are dying. Earth has the resources to help them. And helping them creates a partnership that benefits both worlds. The question isn't whether you can trust aliens. The question is whether you can trust the same instinct that led an 8-year-old boy to help a scared 5-year-old girl. President Williams, who had been quiet throughout the negotiations, stood up. Dr. Chen, Princess Zara, what exactly are you proposing? Zara and Dr. Chen looked at each other, then back at the assembly. A real partnership, Zara said. Not just a trade agreement, but a long-term alliance. We share our advanced technology. You share your resources. We work together to solve problems that neither world could handle alone. And to show our commitment to this partnership, Dr. Chen added, I'm requesting permission to serve as Earth's first interplanetary ambassador. I want to help build the friendship between our worlds that started 23 years ago in a forest. The room erupted in conversation as delegates turned to each other, debating in dozens of languages. Zara stood at the podium, watching the faces in the crowd, trying to read which way the decision would go. Finally, President Williams called for order. We need to vote, she announced. All those in favor of accepting Princess Zara's proposal. For a full partnership between Earth and Andoria, hands began rising around the room. Slowly at first, then more quickly, as delegates saw others voting in favor. Dr. Chen held his breath as he counted the votes. It was going to be close. When the final count was announced, the partnership proposal had passed by just 12 votes. Not overwhelming, but enough. Princess Zara felt tears in her eyes as she realized what this meant. Her people would live. The dying atmosphere of Andoria would be saved. And the friendship that began with 2 scared children would now grow into something that could benefit both worlds for generations to come. 6 months later, Dr. Chen stood in the observation deck of the first joint Earth-Andoria research station, watching ships from both worlds working together in Earth's orbit. Princess Zara joined him at the window, no longer wearing formal royal robes but the practical uniform of a diplomatic liaison. Do you think our 5-year-old and 8-year-old selves would believe this if they could see it? She asked. Dr. Chen smiled, holding the wooden bird that now sat in a place of honor in his new office. I think they'd just be happy that we kept our promise to take care of each other. As they watched Earth and Andoria building their future, together, both of them understood that the greatest discoveries aren't always about technology or resources. Sometimes they're about the simple truth that kindness, once planted, can grow across any distance and survive any amount of time. Their childhood promise had become the foundation for peace between worlds. And that was just the beginning of what they could build together.